11:43 at night. The emergency room at San Francisco General Hospital buzzed with the frantic energy of a Friday night shift when Maya Rodriguez received the call that would change her life forever. 15 years of impeccable service, thousands of lives saved, and in a few minutes everything would crumble because of a choice that any mother would make. Maya, you're fired. Effective immediately. Dr. Marcus Williams' words echoed through the corridors like a professional death sentence. To understand how an act of kindness cost a job and changed 2 lives forever, we need to go back to the night when humanity met protocol and decided that protocols sometimes need to be broken when it comes to protecting someone who needs it. 48 hours earlier, Maya was where she had always been for a decade and a half, caring for people when they needed it most. At 42 years old, she had seen everything in those corridors, from babies being born to elderly people passing away, from devastating accidents to inexplicable miracles. But she had never seen anything like what was about to happen. Have you ever had to choose between following rules and doing what's right? Maya Rodriguez was about to make exactly that choice, and the price would be higher than she had ever imagined. You could feel the tension in the air that playoff night. Golden State Warriors was in the semifinals, and the entire Bay Area was breathing basketball. Maya, like a good single mother, knew every player by name, not by choice, but because her 2 children, Carlos at 16 and Sophia at 12 years old, lived and breathed Warriors. "Mom, did you see the game?" Carlos had asked before she left for her shift. "Curry is playing injured. Everyone is worried." Maya had smiled and kissed her son's forehead. "Don't worry so much, mijo. That boy is strong as a bull." She didn't know that in a few hours she would be seeing exactly how human, vulnerable, and in need of the same care she gave to any patient Steph Curry was. 2 in the morning. The emergency room's automatic doors opened urgently, and an entourage entered carrying what was clearly a celebrity on a stretcher. Maya recognized him immediately. Steph Curry, her children's idol. The man who had brought so much joy to her family watching games on the television in the small apartment she had been renting for 8 years. "Kindness always finds its way back," Maya murmured to herself, a phrase her grandmother always said, and that she had passed on to her children. At that moment, these words seemed like a premonition of what was to come. Dr. Marcus Williams took over the case immediately, but there was a problem. Along with Curry came not only team doctors, but also journalists, photographers, and a crowd of onlookers who had followed the ambulance. "Celebrity protocol," Dr. Williams announced to the team. "Standard treatment, but with controlled media access to keep the hospital in. Positive media coverage." Maya felt something contract in her stomach. Celebrity protocol. As if pain and suffering had different protocols depending on the size of the bank account. How is it possible for a hospital to turn medical care into a marketing opportunity? Maya was seeing exactly that happening, and every fiber of her being as a nurse rebelled against it. Steph Curry was clearly in intense pain. The ankle injury was serious, but more than that, he was visibly emotionally shaken. Maya could see in his eyes what she saw in all her patients: fear, vulnerability, the deeply human need to be cared for with affection. But instead of receiving care, Curry was being photographed, filmed, exposed in his most fragile moment. The camera flashes didn't stop, and Maya could see him trying to shrink, trying to escape the exposure. "Excuse me," Maya said to a photographer who was literally leaning over Curry's stretcher. "You need to leave, now." "Relax, nurse," the photographer responded, arrogantly. "We have authorization from the hospital." Maya looked at Dr. Williams, who was clearly more concerned with talking to reporters than caring for the patient. Something inside her broke. Not anger, but a maternal determination that recognized when someone needed to be protected. What's most impressive is how sometimes we see more clearly what's right when we're protecting someone we love. Maya looked at Curry and didn't see a celebrity. She saw Carlos hurt. She saw Sophia afraid. She saw any of her children needing protection. "Get out. All of you. Now." Her voice carried an authority that made the entire corridor stop. "Maya, what are you doing?" Dr. Williams whispered urgently. "My job," she replied, positioning herself between the cameras and Curry's stretcher. "Taking care of my patient." Naturally, this leads us to the moment when Maya Rodriguez made the decision that would cost her job, but save something much more important: the dignity of someone who needed care, not exploitation. Maya began physically pushing the journalists out of the treatment area. "This man is hurt and vulnerable. You have no right to exploit him this way." "Maya, stop," Dr. Williams ordered. "You're violating protocol." "Then damn the protocol," Maya replied, covering Curry with a sheet to protect him from the cameras. "Some protocols need to be broken." Steph Curry looked at Maya with a gratitude she recognized immediately. It was the same look her children had when she protected them from something that scared them. It was the look of someone who finally felt safe. "Thank you," he whispered, voice choked with pain and emotion. "You don't need to thank me," Maya replied, adjusting the pillow under his head with the same tenderness she would use with Carlos or Sophia. "I'm going to take care of you." And that's exactly what she did. For the next 2 hours, Maya protected Steph Curry like a mother protects a child. She kept the curious away, ensured he received the best medical treatment, and most importantly, treated him like a human being, not like an entertainment object. How many times do we ignore our own humanity to follow protocols that dehumanize others? Maya had chosen to do the opposite, and she knew there would be consequences. When Curry was finally discharged, he held Maya's hand for a moment longer than protocol would suggest. "Do you have children?" he asked. "2, Carlos and Sophia." "They're lucky to have a mother like you." Maya smiled, knowing these would be some of the last kind words she would hear at the hospital for a very long time. 48 hours later, she was being fired for inappropriate conduct and unnecessary exposure of the institution to media controversy. "Kindness always finds its way back," Maya repeated to herself as she cleaned out her locker in the dressing room. But at that moment, with 15 years of career destroyed and 2 children to support, she wondered if her grandmother was wrong. Dr. Williams handed her the dismissal papers without being able to look her in the eyes. "Maya, you know I had no choice. The administration was furious." "Doctor," Maya said with a dignity that impressed even herself, "if taking care of a patient as a human being is grounds for dismissal, then maybe this isn't the place for me anyway." She left San Francisco General Hospital that night, carrying only a box with her personal belongings and the certainty that she had done the right thing. But as she drove home, where Carlos and Sophia were waiting for her with questions about overdue bills and plans for the future, Maya wondered if doing the right thing would be worth it when it meant no longer being able to support her children. Steph Curry, recovering at home and preparing to return to the playoffs, knew nothing about the price Maya had paid for her kindness. But he was about to find out. But what happened when he found out would change everything forever. 3 days after the dismissal, Maya Rodriguez was sitting at the kitchen table in her small apartment, surrounded by overdue bills and calculators that only confirmed what she already knew. Without the hospital salary, she had exactly 6 weeks before she could no longer pay rent. Carlos, her 16-year-old son, entered the kitchen still half asleep, but stopped abruptly when he saw the expression on his mother's face. "Mom, are you okay? You look like you didn't sleep." Maya forced a smile, the kind of smile, that single, mother's perfect after years of protecting their children from their own worries. "I'm fine, mijo. Just organizing some things." Have you ever tried to hide a storm behind a smile? Maya had become a master of this art, but this time the storm was too big to be completely camouflaged. "Mom," Carlos sat next to her, with a maturity that broke Maya's heart. At 16 years old, he already understood more about financial struggle than any teenager should understand. "You lost your job, didn't you?" It was impossible not to feel pride and sadness at the same time. Pride in having raised such a perceptive and caring son. Sadness because he had grown up too fast, learned too early that life isn't always fair. "How do you know?" "You've been home for 3 straight days. In 15 years, I've never seen you miss the hospital, unless Sophia or I were sick." Maya took a deep breath. There was no point in lying. Carlos deserved the truth, even if it hurt. "I was fired for breaking protocol. I protected a patient from media exploitation, and the hospital didn't like it." "Which patient?" "Steph Curry." Carlos's eyes widened. "Seriously? Steph Curry was at your hospital?" "He was, and he was being treated like an entertainment object, not like a person who needed medical care. How is it possible for a teenager to understand concepts of dignity and justice better than hospital administrators?" Carlos was about to demonstrate exactly that. "Mom," Carlos held her hand, "you did the right thing. You always taught us that treating people with dignity is more important than following stupid rules." "Kindness always finds its way back," Maya whispered, repeating the familiar mantra. "But sometimes it takes longer than we expect." Sophia, 12 years old, appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in pajamas. "Why are you talking quietly? Did something happen?" Maya looked at her 2 children. Carlos, almost a man, but still her baby. Sophia, still a child, but already showing the same determination she had inherited from her mother. How to explain to them that the future had become uncertain because she had chosen to do what was right? "Sit here," Maya said, opening her arms. "Let's talk." Naturally, this leads us to the moment when Maya had to find courage to be vulnerable with her own children. Something every single mother fears, but sometimes needs to do. "Children," Maya began, choosing her words carefully. "Mommy lost her job, but it wasn't because I did something wrong. It was because I did something right that some people didn't understand." Sophia, with the brutal honesty of children, went straight to the point. "Does this mean we're going to lose our house?" The question hit Maya like a punch to the stomach, but she kept her voice steady. "We're not going to lose our house. Mommy will find a way. I always do." "And if you don't?" Sophia insisted. Carlos put his arm around his sister. "She will, Sophia. Mom always finds a way." What's most impressive is how children can be incredibly resilient when they feel their parents are being honest with them. Maya was seeing this resilience manifest right in front of her. "I'm going to look for another job," Maya said, with more confidence than she felt. "I have 15 years of experience. Someone will hire me." But she knew it wouldn't be simple. The dismissal for inappropriate conduct would appear in any background check. The nursing world was small, and news traveled fast. The phone rang, interrupting the family moment. It was Isabella Chen, her best friend and colleague at the hospital. "Maya, did you see the news?" "What news?" "About you and Steph Curry. It's everywhere." Maya felt her stomach sink. "What are they saying?" "TMZ found out you were fired. They're calling you the nurse who protected Curry and making you look like a hero. But they're also speculating if you did it to gain fame." It was possible to perceive that Maya's life was about to get complicated in ways she had never imagined. It wasn't enough to have lost her job. Now she was involuntarily becoming a public figure. "Isabella, I didn't ask for this attention." "I know, Maya. Everyone at the hospital knows. Half the nursing staff wants to resign in protest over your dismissal. You did what all of us wanted to do for years." "And the other half?" "The other half is afraid of losing their jobs, too." Maya hung up the phone with a growing sense that her life had completely spiraled out of control. Not only had she lost her job, but now she was at the center of a media controversy she had never sought. Carlos, who had heard part of the conversation, asked, "Mom, are you going to be famous?" "I hope not," Maya replied honestly. "Famous doesn't pay the bills, mijo." In the next few hours, the phone didn't stop ringing. Journalists wanting interviews, talk show producers offering appearances, and even agents wanting to represent her. Maya refused everything. She hadn't protected Steph Curry. To gain fame, she had done it because it was the right thing to do. But there was a problem. The media attention was making it impossible to find another job. No hospital wanted to hire someone who was at the center of a controversy, however noble the cause. How many times does doing the right thing put us in situations we never asked for? Maya was living exactly that, discovering that sometimes the price of integrity is higher than we imagine. 2 weeks passed. Maya's savings were running out, quickly. She had applied for dozens of nursing positions, but all interviews ended the same way. "We need someone with a more discreet profile." "Kindness always finds its way back," she repeated to herself every night. But the phrase was beginning to sound more like desperation than hope. It was Friday night when Sophia asked the question Maya had been dreading. "Mom, why don't you call Steph Curry? He doesn't know you lost your job for helping him." "Sophia, that's not how it works. Famous people don't get involved in the lives of normal people like us." "But you're not a normal person, Mom. You're special. And he should know that." Carlos agreed. "Sophia is right, Mom. You always taught us that when someone does something good for you, you should give back." Maya smiled sadly. "Children, the real world doesn't work like in movies. Steph Curry probably doesn't even remember my name." But she was wrong. Very wrong. At that exact moment across town, Steph Curry was watching the news and discovering for the first time the price Maya had paid for protecting him. And what he was about to do would change not only Maya's life, but redefine how he saw gratitude, responsibility, and the power of returning kindness. No one could imagine that moment would be the turning point. Steph Curry was in his recovery room, watching the evening news while doing physical therapy exercises for his ankle, when a headline made him stop everything he was doing. "Nurse fired for protecting Steph. Curry from paparazzi. Family in financial crisis." The remote control fell from his hands when he saw Maya Rodriguez's face on the screen. It was her. The nurse who had treated him with such care, who had protected him when he was most vulnerable, who had made him feel human instead of just an injured celebrity. Maya Rodriguez, a nurse for 15 years at San Francisco General Hospital, was fired after protecting NBA star Steph Curry from media exploitation during his medical treatment. The reporter narrated. Sources say Rodriguez, a single mother of 2 children, is facing financial difficulties and cannot find new employment due to the controversy. Have you ever felt that moment when you realize someone sacrificed something important for you, without you even knowing? Curry was living exactly that, and guilt hit him like a devastating wave. Curry's phone rang immediately. It was his manager, worried about the possible implications of the story for Curry's image. But Steph didn't even pay attention to his words. His mind was completely focused on one thing. Maya had lost her job for protecting him, and he didn't even know. It was impossible not to feel that his life had been built on sacrifices of other people he wasn't even aware of. How many Mayas were out there doing good and paying the price while he went on with his life without even knowing? "Cancel everything on my schedule tomorrow," Curry told his manager, interrupting a conversation about crisis management. "I need to do something. Steph, you can't get directly involved in this. Let our public relations team—" "No," Curry interrupted, with a firmness that surprised even himself. "This isn't about public relations. It's about doing what's right." The next morning, Steph Curry did something he had done only once in his life. He looked up someone's personal address without warning and went there personally. No team, no security, no manager. Just him, driving his own car to Maya Rodriguez's address that he had gotten through contacts at the hospital. How is it possible for someone accustomed to having everything organized by other people to find courage to do something completely spontaneous? Curry was discovering that true gratitude doesn't follow protocols. 11 in the morning on Saturday. Maya was in the kitchen, trying to stretch the last package of pasta to make lunch for her and the children, when someone knocked on the door. Carlos went to answer, and Maya heard a confused conversation from the hallway. "Mom!" Carlos shouted, with a voice that mixed shock and excitement. It's Steph Curry, at our door." Maya dropped the spoon she was holding. For a moment, she thought she had heard wrong. But when she walked to the door, there he was. Steph Curry, the man who had indirectly changed her life, standing on her doorstep with an expression she recognized immediately. The same expression of vulnerable gratitude she had seen at the hospital. "Hi, Maya," he said simply. "Can I come in? We need to talk." What's most impressive is how some situations are so surreal that our mind takes time to process them. Maya was living exactly that, trying to reconcile the image of the global star with the vulnerable man she had cared for at the hospital. Of course, you can come in," Maya stuttered, still processing the surrealism of the situation. Steph entered the small 2-bedroom apartment, and Maya felt a pang of shame at the contrast between his life and hers. Simple furniture, old television, evident signs of a life built with much effort and few resources. But Curry showed no judgment. On the contrary, there was something respectful in the way he looked around, as if he were in a sacred place. "Maya," he began, sitting at the small kitchen table where she had been counting coins the night before. "I only found out yesterday what happened to you. That you lost your job for protecting me." "It wasn't your fault," Maya said, quickly. "I made a choice." "It was. But you shouldn't have to pay that price for doing what was right." Naturally, this leads us to the most touching moment of the conversation, when Curry realized that Maya had treated him not as a celebrity, but as a son. Curry looked around the apartment again, noticing the photos on the refrigerator. Carlos in a school basketball uniform, Sophia with a science award, Maya graduating from nursing school 15 years ago. "You have a beautiful family," he said. "They're everything to me," Maya replied, and Curry could hear all the maternal dedication in her voice. "Maya," Curry leaned forward, "at the hospital, you treated me exactly like you would treat your own children, didn't you?" Maya hesitated, but then nodded. "When I saw you being exploited that way, all I could think was, what if it were Carlos there? What if it were Sophia?" "Kindness always finds its way back," Curry said, repeating the words Maya had murmured at the hospital and that had somehow been engraved in his memory. Maya looked at him, surprised. "You remembered." "I remembered everything, Maya. I remembered how you protected me. I remembered how you made me feel safe when I was scared. I remembered how you treated me like a person, not like a celebrity." Tears began to form in Maya's eyes. "It was just my job." "No," Curry shook his head vigorously. "Your job was to give me medicine and check my vital signs. You did much more than that. You gave me dignity when I needed it most. How many times do we underestimate the impact of our acts of kindness on other people's lives?" Maya was discovering that her protection had meant much more to Curry than she had ever imagined. Carlos and Sophia, who had been hiding in the hallway listening to the conversation, finally had the courage to approach. Sophia, with the brutal honesty of children, went straight to the point. "Mr. Curry, are you going to help our mom? She's very worried, but doesn't want us to know." Maya was mortified. "Sophia." But Curry smiled, recognizing in the girl the same direct honesty he had seen in her mother. "Sophia, can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "What do you want most in the whole world?" "For my mom to not worry about money anymore, and for her to go back to work saving people, because that's what she loves." Sophia's answer hit Curry in the heart. Here was a family that wasn't asking for mansions or luxury cars. They were asking for stability and the opportunity to continue helping others. "Maya," Curry turned to her, "you saved much more than my ankle that night. You saved my faith in humanity. You reminded me that there are still people who do right even when it costs dearly." "Steph, I'm not finished," he interrupted gently. "You gave me something invaluable when I needed it most. Now it's my turn to give back. But not as a celebrity trying to solve problems with money. As someone who wants to honor what you did." It was possible to perceive that something profound was happening in that conversation. It wasn't just about gratitude or solving financial problems. It was about two people recognizing each other as human beings worthy of care and respect. "What do you mean?" Maya asked, voice choked. Curry took a deep breath, looking at Maya, then at Carlos and Sophia. "I want to create something in your honor. Something that ensures other healthcare professionals never have to choose between doing right and keeping their jobs. And I want you to be part of it." "Steph, I can't accept charity." "It's not charity, Maya," Curry interrupted. "It's partnership. It's recognition. It's ensuring your kindness multiplies and helps thousands of other people." The silence that followed was charged with possibility. Maya looked at her children, who watched her with hope in their eyes, then at Curry, who was offering not just a solution to her problems, but a chance to transform her sacrifice into something greater. "Kindness always finds its way back," she whispered. "Always," Curry confirmed. "And sometimes it comes back in ways we never imagine." When Curry left Maya's apartment an hour later, both knew their lives had changed forever. Not just because of the financial help he would offer, but because of the partnership that was being born. A partnership that would transform Maya's tragedy into a force for good that would touch thousands of lives. And that's when the truth finally came to light. 6 months after that conversation that changed everything, Maya Rodriguez was on a stage at the Moscone Center in San Francisco before 1,000 healthcare professionals, wearing an elegant dress she never imagined she could buy, about to announce something that would transform the lives of nurses and doctors across the country. "Kindness always finds its way back," she said into the microphone, her voice echoing through the packed auditorium. "Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it comes in ways we never imagine. But it always comes." Beside her on stage, Steph Curry smiled with the pride of someone who had discovered that true gratitude isn't just saying thank you. It's transforming a gesture of kindness into a force that multiplies kindness throughout the world. To understand how we got to this transformative moment, we need to go back to the day after that conversation in Maya's kitchen, when Steph Curry did something that neither his managers, nor his family, nor he himself expected. Have you ever seen someone transform personal gratitude into systemic change? Curry was about to show the world how that's done. On the Monday following his visit, Curry called Maya with a proposal that left her speechless. "Maya, I want to create the Maya Rodriguez Foundation for Dignity in Healthcare, and I want you to be the executive director." "Steph, I'm just a nurse." "You're a nurse who put humanity above protocols," he interrupted. "That's exactly the kind of leadership this foundation needs." It was impossible not to feel that the universe was conspiring to transform the worst experience of Maya's life into the greatest opportunity she had ever received. The Maya Rodriguez Foundation had 3 simple but revolutionary objectives: protect healthcare professionals who prioritized human dignity over corporate protocols, provide financial support for families of healthcare professionals in crisis, and reform hospital policies that dehumanized both patients and staff. How is it possible for an unjust dismissal to transform into the seed of a revolution in healthcare humanization? Maya was living exactly this transformation, discovering that sometimes our worst moments are preparation for our greatest purposes. The Foundation's first case was emblematic. Dr. Isabella Chen, who had been suspended for refusing to release confidential medical information of a patient to an insurance company. Within hours, the Foundation had provided legal and financial support, and Dr. Chen not only kept her job, but became a symbol of medical integrity. "Kindness always finds its way back," Maya told Dr. Chen during the Foundation's first meeting. "And now we can ensure it finds its way faster." Naturally, this leads us to the moment when the Foundation grew beyond any expectation, proving that when you plant seeds of kindness in fertile soil, the harvest can feed multitudes. 6 months after its creation, the Maya Rodriguez Foundation had protected 47 healthcare professionals from unjust dismissals, helped 150 families in financial crisis, changed policies in 23 hospitals around the country, inspired the creation of similar foundations in other states. But the deepest impact wasn't in the numbers. It was in the individual stories of people who now knew that doing right didn't mean being alone. Maya had moved to a larger apartment. Not a mansion, but a place where Carlos and Sofia had their own rooms, and she had an office to work on foundation cases. Carlos was applying to universities with scholarships the Foundation had helped secure, and Sofia had become a little activist for healthcare professionals' rights. What's most impressive is how transforming personal pain into collective purpose can heal not just our own wounds, but the wounds of an entire community. Maya had discovered this alchemy of transformation. Dr. Marcus Williams, the chief who had fired Maya, requested a private meeting 6 months after the Foundation's creation. Maya accepted, curious to know what he had to say. "Maya," he began, clearly uncomfortable. I made a terrible mistake when I fired you. And worse, I made that mistake defending protocols that were wrong. Doctor? No, let me finish. San Francisco General wants to offer you not just your job back, but a supervisory position to implement new patient dignity protocols. Protocols based on your foundation's work. Maya smiled, but shook her head. Doctor, I appreciate the offer, but my place now is at the foundation. I can help many more healthcare professionals from there than from inside a hospital. It was possible to perceive that Maya had found not just a new job, but a new vocation, a vocation that honored both her passion for caring for people and her experience of being unjustly punished for doing right. But, Maya continued, I can help you implement the changes. The Foundation wants to work with hospitals, not against them. 1 year after the Foundation's creation, Maya was again on a stage, but this time at the National Healthcare Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C., speaking to policymakers about the need to protect healthcare professionals who put humanity above bureaucracies. 2 years ago, she began her speech, I lost my job for protecting a patient from media exploitation. I thought my career was over. I thought doing right had cost everything I had built. Steph Curry was in the front row, along with Carlos and Sophia, watching with pride as Maya commanded the attention of some of the country's most influential leaders. But I discovered something fundamental, Maya continued. Kindness always finds its way back. Sometimes it comes back as a second chance. Sometimes it comes back as a new opportunity. And sometimes, if we're lucky, it comes back as a mission that's bigger than ourselves. How many times do we witness someone completely transform a personal tragedy into a force for positive change in the world? Maya was proving this was possible, inspiring a national audience. The Maya Rodriguez Foundation doesn't exist because I lost my job, she said, reaching the climax of her speech. It exists because every day, in hospitals around the country, healthcare professionals face the same choice I faced. Follow protocols, or follow their humanity. And many choose humanity, knowing they might pay a high price for that choice. The applause that followed lasted 5 full minutes. But for Maya, true success wasn't in the applause. It was in the fact that, at that exact moment, dozens of healthcare professionals around the country knew they had support to make courageous and humane choices. After the speech, Curry approached Maya. You know you changed my life too, right? How so? Before that night at the hospital, I thought my responsibility was just to play basketball well. You taught me that when you have a platform, you have responsibility to use it to protect people who protect others. Maya hugged Curry, feeling the deep connection between two people who had discovered how to transform a moment of vulnerability into a force for good. Carlos, now 17 years old and about to start college with a full scholarship, approached the two. Mom, remember when you said kindness always finds its way back? Of course. I think it didn't just come back. I think it multiplied. Sophia, now 13 years old and already dreaming of following her mother's footsteps in healthcare, added, and it will continue, multiplying forever, because now there are hundreds of people spreading the same kindness. Maya looked at her children, then at Curry, then at the auditorium still applauding, and finally understood the true meaning of her grandmother's phrase. Kindness always finds its way back. But when it comes back, it doesn't come alone. It brings with it opportunities, purposes, and the chance to plant seeds that will grow far beyond what we can imagine. Kindness always finds its way back, Maya whispered one last time, And when it does, it transforms everything it touches. Maya Rodriguez had lost a job for helping Steph Curry. What he did in return not only moved the entire world, it transformed the concept of how gratitude can become a revolutionary force for good. And perhaps, just perhaps, this is the true definition of a modern miracle. When an act of kindness multiplies until it becomes a movement that changes the world, one life at a time.